Errol is a young boy living in a fantastical realm where everyone receives a blessing in the form of a class from their goddess. This class determines their future occupation and is revealed on their 10th birthday. Today marks a significant day for Errol, as he has just turned 10 and is about to be assigned his class. His parents and sister are brimming with excitement, imagining the impressive class he might receive, while Errol himself seems disinterested in the whole system. After breakfast, they hurry to the church, where a priest stands by an altar performing the customary blessing. He informs each child of their assigned class, with some becoming blacksmiths and others chefs. Errol's sister reminds him that the classes often reflect the professions of one's parents, suggesting he might receive something extraordinary. When Errol's turn arrives, he approaches the priest while whispers of anticipation fill the air. Everyone is eager to see what legendary class he will receive, especially given that his mother is a sword saint and his father an archmage. However, when the priest touches Errol's forehead, nothing happens, leaving him bewildered. The priest looks down at him with pity, revealing that he has been born classless. Days pass and Errol's parents attempt to lift his spirits, assuring him that he need not worry about finding a job and can always live with them. Yet, Errol is not troubled about his future. He insists he is not depressed, sharing that he has been diligently practicing swordsmanship since childhood. Although having the swordsman class would have made his journey easier, he is confident that his rigorous training with his exceptionally skilled mother will allow him to forge his own path. Feeling a sense of relief from his family, he decides to spend some time alone, but soon hears commotion from the training ground. There, he observes two boys sparring. Despite their lack of fundamental skills, their mere possession of the swordsman class makes them formidable. They notice Errol watching and mockingly question why he is standing there. He responds that he came to practice, prompting laughter from them. They assert that a classless boy cannot possibly spar with a real swordsman and demonstrate their skills by striking at each other. Unfazed, Errol challenges them to a match. Though the boys think he is joking, they agree to fight. Before the duel begins, one boy asks Errol if he at least possesses divine protection, a barrier that shields everyone from harm. Errol confirms he does, allowing the boy to attack him without fear of serious injury. However, Errol retorts that he doesn't need divine protection to defeat brats like them, inciting the boy's anger as he charges at him. Errol easily parries the attack, shocking the boy, who begins swinging wildly. Yet Errol manages to block and deflect every strike. As the boy grows desperate, his friend attempts to intervene, but Errol swiftly dodges. Realizing these opponents are no match for him compared to his mother, he decides a 2-on-1 match would be more fitting. He rushes forward, knocking one boy out with a pommel strike to the chin, while the other trips and falls, both whining about unfairness. Suddenly, a red-haired boy enters the fray, telling the pair to be quiet as if they were on a battlefield. He strides directly toward Errol, challenging him to a duel. He claims Errol only defeated the other boys due to his mother's innate abilities as a sword saint, asserting that as a classless individual, Errol will never measure up to someone with a class and proper training. The red-haired boy reveals that he is the son of Captain Evans, the village guard leader. Errol recalls the captain seeking his mother's assistance, but notes the boy bears no resemblance to the rugged man he met. The boy laments that his mother is deemed the strongest, despite his father being a skilled swordsman as well. To prove whose family is superior, he intends to defeat Errol. They take their positions and the match begins. The red-haired boy immediately launches an aggressive attack, aiming for a quick victory. However, Errol, having trained extensively with his mother, maintains a strong defense. Their rapid exchanges leave the other boys awestruck on the sidelines. Errol recognizes that while the red-haired boy is stronger than his previous opponents, his anger is causing him to fight sloppily. As Errol searches for an opening, the red-haired boy executes a special aerial slash. Errol blocks one attack, but is struck in the chest by the other, knocking him to the ground. Surprised, Errol asks about the technique, but the boy boasts it's a skill unattainable for a classless individual. Days pass after that defeat, igniting a new determination within Errol. He retreats to the forest, practicing his swordsmanship on a dummy target. After countless attempts, he successfully replicates the twin slash that previously bested him. Just as he begins to celebrate his achievement, a goblin ambushes him from the bushes. Errol swiftly counters with his newly learned twin slash, dispatching the creature. Thrilled by his progress, he is suddenly shaken by a deep roar emanating from the forest. He decides to return to the village to alert the guards, but is halted by a boy's cry, realizing someone may be in danger. Choosing to venture deeper into the forest, he soon spots the red-haired boy, bloodied and wounded, facing a massive hobgoblin, an enemy Errol has never encountered before. Unsure of his strength against the beast, he wrestles with the decision to flee for help, but recognizes the boy's life is at stake. Resolutely, Errol sneaks behind the hobgoblin and, just as it prepares to finish the red-haired boy, he unleashes a powerful twin slash, slashing through the monster and killing it instantly. The boy, astonished, stares at the fallen hobgoblin, more shocked that Errol executed a technique he believed could only be performed by those with a class. Errol offers the boy some holy water for recovery. The boy, still in disbelief, asks how he accomplished such a feat. Errol explains that his technique is not reliant on having a class. Anyone with sufficient skill, speed, and power can replicate it. After analyzing the twin slashes that defeated him, he practiced relentlessly to grasp the fundamentals, allowing him to modify the attack as he wishes. Unconvinced, the boy challenges Errol to a duel, which he gladly accepts. They face off, unleashing their abilities simultaneously. To the boy's shock, Errol not only blocks his slash, but also adds a third strike, knocking him to the ground. Furious, the captain's son rises to engage again, but once again, Errol's additional third slash overpowers him, sending him crashing down again. Claiming victory, Errol walks away. 5 years pass, and Errol decides to embark on a journey to Breasta, a kingdom renowned for its swordsmanship. Both his mother and Captain Evans trained there, and Errol aspires to become the best, just like them. On his journey, he encounters a few strangers, including 2 highly skilled swordsmen, a man with the barbarian class and a woman known for her dual-wielding prowess. Both seek to sharpen their skills in Breasta, but seem to be at odds with one another. The cart driver urges them to settle their differences, reminding them they're all heading to the same destination. Yet the man's misogynistic remarks suggest he believes the woman should return to the kitchen.
Before any further arguments could arise, the cart driver shouted for everyone to ready their swords, signaling that trouble was approaching. Errol calmly glanced up and spotted a horde of orcs led by a massive figure, blocking their path with no intention of letting them escape alive. 2 children in the cart, terrified, pleaded with the barbarian to save them. True to her reputation, the barbarian proved to be both a coward and a jerk, claiming she wouldn't risk her life for others before leaping from the cart and fleeing. The woman followed, declaring that in this world, everyone was on their own. The cart driver grew anxious, questioning whether he could outrun the horde with his cart and passengers. But before he could act, Errol silently climbed down and began advancing toward the monsters. The driver urged him to retreat and save himself, but Errol ignored him, dashing toward the first orc and driving his sword into its heart. The driver was astounded by Errol's incredible speed and precision, as he used instantaneous movement to appear and disappear before the orcs, taking them down one by one. Unfortunately, he soon found himself surrounded, unable to utilize his dash technique. To the driver's astonishment, Errol executed a legendary maneuver known as the blade dance, spinning gracefully and cutting down multiple foes in one fluid motion. The driver was baffled, as this skill was typically reserved for women of the Sword Princess class. Errol, however, rejected such gender norms, aspiring to be part of the LGHDTV community. He charged the orc leader, expertly dodging its attack before leaping onto it and plunging his sword deep into its skull, ending its life instantly. He returned to the stunned driver, instructing him to continue their journey to Breasta. When one of the children asked about his class, he simply replied that he had none, leaving everyone in shock. He recalled how, 5 years prior, when he demonstrated his new twin blade skill to his mother, she thought she was imagining things. Upon telling her he was training to replicate any skill he observed, she had been overjoyed and promised to teach him all the techniques of the Sword Princess class. Now, in the present, the driver awakened him, announcing their arrival in Breasta, the land of swords. As Errol disembarked from the cart, he was greeted by a bustling town center filled with people sporting swords at their waists. He turned to the driver and inquired if he was an advanced swordsman. Initially, the driver dismissed it, claiming he was merely a cart driver, but Errol sensed that only a skilled swordsman could recognize the moves he had executed. The driver admitted to being from the Holy Knights class, a respectable class, but confessed he preferred to relax and pretend to be an ordinary driver. Realizing it was likely Errol's first visit to the city, the Holy Knight advised him to find a guild, as fighting in tournaments was the primary way swordsmen proved their worth and earned money. Errol replied that he wasn't interested in money. He wanted to challenge the strongest swordsman available. The driver cautioned him about toxic corporate guilds that could drain one's spirit, then turned to leave as Errol entered the city, observing various guilds recruiting members and swordsmen lining up for better opportunities. As he walked, he bumped into a desperate blonde girl who clung to him, insisting he join her renowned guild. Errol, sensing her desperation, declined her offer. Undeterred, she continued to pester him. He inquired about the strongest guild, and she reluctantly mentioned that the Shadowblade Guild was currently among the best, boasting 8 classes of swordsmen. He asked for directions and promptly set off toward the guild, only to be halted by a guard directing him to the reception for trials. There he found a long line of aspiring swordsmen eager to enter the prestigious guild. Excitement coursed through him as he anticipated the formidable opponents he would face. However, when it was his turn to register, the receptionist scoffed at him for being a classless loser, stating that only those with advanced swordsman classes could apply for the trials. Errol insisted he could pass their trial, but she refused to register him. Disheartened, he turned to leave when he noticed 3 ranked swordsmen entering the hall, treated like celebrities. Uninterested in the theatrics, he approached other guilds only to be rejected by each one for lacking a class. Exhausted, he returned to the city, pulling out a letter from his mother, urging him to find her old guild, which would surely assist him. He wondered if she had anticipated his struggles, but felt grateful nonetheless. Just as he began to read the letter, the blonde girl latched onto him again, claiming her guild was still eager to accept him. He declined once more, but she began to plead for him to join, even suggesting it was a charitable act. She pointed to a beautiful guild house, asserting it was her guild. This piqued Errol's interest, and she explained that the Dragon Fan Guild, once the best in the country, had fallen into decline, and she aimed to restore its former glory. The name sparked a memory. His mother had spoken of the guild's leader, a dual-wielding swordsman who named it after his signature move. Checking the letter, he confirmed it was indeed the guild his mother mentioned. He decided to enter with her, much to her delight. However, upon entering, they encountered an old, one-armed man slumped on a couch. He dismissed Errol, stating the guild was doomed. The girl explained he was her father, once the city's second-best swordsman, but had never recovered after losing his arm. Surprisingly, Errol declared his desire to join the guild, making her ecstatic. She quickly drafted an agreement, which Errol filled out and returned. When she asked why he left the class column blank, he responded that he had no class. The girl snapped, drawing her sword, believing he had been acting aloof because he was an advanced class swordsman. Before she could say more, the door swung open, revealing a red-haired beauty named Rai. The girl rushed to her, crying that this classless fool had deceived her into joining the guild. Rai turned her attention to Errol, expressing surprise at seeing him there. Errol, puzzled, asked how she knew him. Rai revealed they were from the same village and had trained together. Finally, it dawned on him that the red-haired boy he had sparred with countless times was actually a girl. The girl recognized the story and asked Rai if this was the classless guy who had defeated her when they were younger, believing it to be a myth. Rai, however, was still fixated on that loss and immediately challenged Errol to a duel. The fight commenced, and Rai launched a twin slash attack, which Errol thought he could counter. To his astonishment, her strikes overpowered his and struck him in the chest. Confused, he learned that she possessed the power swordsman class, enabling her to wield a sword 5 times heavier than usual, granting her immense power with each blow. Impressed by her retained speed, he realized it paled in comparison to his own. As she attacked again, he created an after-image to distract her, appearing behind her to land a hit. Rai was bewildered and tried again, but the outcome remained the same. She couldn't fathom how Errol was employing techniques reserved for the most advanced swordsmen. Aware that normal attacks wouldn't suffice against her tank-like resilience, Rai attempted to finish the fight with powerful blows. Errol countered with his mother's signature move, bringing her to her knees and ending the duel just like that. With the fight concluded, the girl's demeanor changed entirely. She warmly welcomed him into their guild, explaining they were in crippling debt. To recover, they most entered tournaments as a three-man team against other guilds that typically field a five-member squad. Errol, however, was excited by the prospect of challenging formidable opponents and looked forward to the opportunity to refine his skills.
The following morning, Errol awakens in his own room, nestled in a new bed that now belongs to him. It takes him a moment to piece together everything that has transpired since his arrival. He is now part of the same legendary guild that his mother once served, which is a significant achievement for him. Determined not to disappoint her, he resolves to help restore the guild to its former glory. After freshening up, he steps into the living room, where Loli and Rai are already engaged in lively conversation by the fire, discussing the upcoming tournaments. Loli eagerly pulls Errol into their discussion, informing him that the tournament is set to begin next week. With the addition of their third member, they are now eligible to compete. She warns him that the tournament will be challenging, as it will follow an elimination format with one-on-one matches, and most guilds will likely field 5 members, putting them at a significant disadvantage. To survive even the first round, they must defeat multiple opponents. Despite the odds, Loli remains optimistic, pointing out that their guild boasts 2 B-rank swordsmen. As long as they don't face any ranked opponents, they should be evenly matched. Curious about the ranking system, Errol asks for clarification. Loli explains that there are 5 ranks, with T being the highest. Out of 20 swordsmen in Breasta, only a select few achieve A rank, while D rank is reserved for complete beginners who can merely hold a sword. Proudly, she reveals that both she and Rai are B-rank swordsmen. Since Errol managed to defeat Rai in a direct confrontation, he is also considered a B-rank swordsman, putting them in a promising position for the initial rounds. As Loli heads into the kitchen, Errol seizes the opportunity to inquire about Rai's abilities as a power swordsman. Although still slightly annoyed by her previous defeat, Rai reveals that one of her skills allows her to harden her mana shield, providing protection against weaker attacks. Errol contemplates how he might learn such a valuable technique when an idea strikes him. He asks Rai to hit him with her sword while it remains sheathed. Initially reluctant, she is persuaded by Errol's insistence, although she misinterprets his request, thinking he has other motives. Clearing up the misunderstanding, Errol explains that he wants to experience the impact to learn how to enhance his mana protection shield for situations involving multiple attackers. Rai is taken aback, questioning his sanity, as skills are typically bestowed by divine grace and cannot be learned. But Errol, now an atheist, counters that he has already mastered skills like twin blade slice and instant transmission. This silences Rai, who reluctantly agrees to try it out. They move to the training ground, where Rai warns him that her sword is 5 times heavier than a standard sword, and that without brute strength skill, he won't be able to wield it. Defying expectations, Errol unsheathes the sword and swings it with surprising grace and ease, leaving Rai speechless. She asks how he can manage all this without any skills or class, to which he replies that his abilities are a result of dedication and daily practice. He vows to match their talent through hard work and effort. This changes Rai's perception of him, and she apologizes for her earlier comments. She takes back the sword, agreeing to train him, but warns that she won't hold back. As their training progresses, Loli bursts into the training ground breathless and stressed to inform them of their upcoming match against the formidable Black Blade Guild. She reveals that they will be facing Geo, their vicious leader with a reputation for destruction. Despite the daunting challenge, Loli inspires her teammates with a fiery speech, vowing to give their best. She glances at Errol, who is still recovering from Rai's training assault, and asks if he's all right. Rai assures her that they're just engaged in rigorous training. Finally, a week passes, and the day of the competition arrives. Spectators from across the country gather at the Grand Coliseum, and Errol is awestruck by its enormity. Loli overhears disparaging remarks about their guild, igniting her temper, but Rai manages to calm her. Errol notices the betting atmosphere, learning that the odds are stacked against them at 20-1. Loli reacts angrily, pointing out that this means no one believes they can win. Yet she sees a silver lining. If they do win, they could walk away with a substantial fortune. With the stakes raised, Loli reveals that she has taken out a loan using the guild house as collateral, meaning a loss would spell disaster for them. Rai questions what would happen if they lose, to which Loli coldly replies that they would have lost everything anyway. Suddenly, they are confronted by Gio, who belittles Loli and reveals that he orchestrated their matchup. He boasts about how easy it will be to crush their guild, but Loli remains resolute, vowing to defeat their opponents. As they enter the arena, Errol notes that Gio is not participating in the fight, wondering if that might improve their chances. However, Rai reminds him that the opposing team is still formidable, boasting all A-ranked members. The announcer introduces the contestants, and a green-haired fencer steps forward, declaring his intention to defeat the entire opposing team. The match begins, and in mere seconds, the fencer lunges, stabbing Errol in the chest. The audience gasps, but Loli grows worried, while Rai urges her to watch closely. It was merely Errol's shadow. The fencer, unfazed, attempts to strike again, only to find another afterimage. As he realizes he's surrounded by illusions of Errol, he plans to use his speed to strike them down. All the afterimages attack simultaneously, and the fencer slashes through them, only to be caught off guard by the real Errol, who had managed to create 3 afterimages, a feat that typically requires great skill. The fencer falls, and the match ends, much to the crowd's delight. Errol explains that his mother taught him to use 5 images at once, and that was her going easy on him. The commentator is astounded as the audience erupts in cheers for the classless contender. As Errol prepares for his next match against a dual wielder, he faces a relentless barrage of strikes. However, he manages to block them all before executing the twin slash attack, taking down his opponent. With 2 victories under his belt, he faces yet another challenger, a reverse grip dagger wielder who employs a cautious martial arts style. However, this proved futile as Errol was simply too swift, leaving his opponent bewildered with afterimages before delivering a decisive blow from behind. Rai and Loli were taken aback, witnessing a man who effortlessly defeated 3 A-ranked swordsmen in record time. This ignited a flicker of hope among the underdogs that victory might be within reach. The next match posed a greater challenge, pitting him against a shield swordsman renowned for his toughness. Unable to land critical hits, Errol resorted to a strategic dance, gradually wearing down his opponent's defenses. The brute taunted him, insisting he couldn't possibly be classless. Errol countered that his achievement stemmed from relentless hard work, not innate talent. The brute charged with a shield bash, but Errol deftly applied his mother's signature technique of foresight, predicting the attack and countering by kicking the shield aside. He then executed a martial arts move learned from his previous opponent, landing a solid kick to the brute's stomach. Seizing the shield, Errol advanced, prompting an enraged counterattack. With a swift parry, he dashed forward, unleashing a shield bash that sent his opponent crashing to the ground. The crowd erupted in uproar, accusing him of hiding his rank and class. In response, the organizers presented his class ID to the magic crystal ball, confirming his classless status. With that settled, the next opponent was introduced, Masamune, a swordsman of samurai lineage wielding a curved katana. Sensing the imminent danger, Errol prepared himself, aware that this fight would be far from straightforward. Masamune appeared poised to unleash his ultimate skill, but Errol, driven by curiosity, stepped forward, placing himself in harm's way. The moment he entered Masamune's range, the swordsman struck, but Errol vanished, reappearing behind him. Masamune was astonished, and Errol remarked that while Masamune was the fastest he'd seen in the city, his own mother surpassed him. With that, he executed the Sword Princess's ultimate skill, delivering multiple strikes that ultimately defeated Masamune. The audience fell into stunned silence as the supposed weakest member of the least prestigious guild swept aside the strongest members of the top guilds. As Errol approached Rai and Loli, a sense of satisfaction washed over him, knowing they had likely secured enough funds to sustain the guild. That evening, back at the guild house, a celebration erupted, drinks flowing freely. Errol was surprised to learn that Loli was of drinking age, though she insisted she was a grown woman.
Despite her small stature, she was in disbelief that Errol had single-handedly vanquished 5 A-ranked swordsmen from the best guild in the country. Determined to win his affection, she boldly proposed marriage, claiming she could fulfill all his desires. However, Errol, embodying a true Sigma, declined, stating he preferred someone like Ray. This made Ray blush, and she shot up from her seat, scolding Errol for such remarks, but he genuinely considered it. When he questioned her perception, she reminded him of their childhood sword fights, where he jokingly called her a man. She lamented that others had told her she lacked womanly charms, but Errol, noticing her attributes, disagreed. Realizing Ray was oblivious to her own strengths, Loli decided to take matters into her own hands. She began rubbing Errol's legs, suggesting he must be weary from the day's battles, and invited him to meet her in the bedroom. Rai, embarrassed, urged Loli to stop, but Loli smiled, insisting she merely wanted to offer a well-deserved massage. To her surprise, Errol stated he preferred a massage from Ray, envisioning a rigorous training session instead. Loli watched from the balcony, pondering whether Errol truly understood what a massage entailed. Their ruckus eventually roused Loli's father, who stumbled down groggy and complaining about the noise. Loli, however, informed him that they had triumphed against the best guild, catching his attention. Initially skeptical, he assumed the Black Blade had sent weaker members as cannon fodder, but Loli stunned him further by revealing that all their opponents were A-ranked and that Errol had defeated them solo. This revelation jolted him from his hangover as he scrutinized Errol, battered but victorious, questioning the boy's true strength. Loli proudly shared her bets successfully, explaining they not only cleared their debts, but also secured enough funds for operational costs. Yet her father remained skeptical, warning that if Errol was indeed that strong, larger, wealthier guilds would soon poach him, advising her not to get her hopes up. Loli confidently asserted that she would soon marry Errol, binding their fates together. Errol, however, interrupted, expressing disinterest in such commitments, but then turned to her father, remarking that while Loli might be a bit thick-headed, she wasn't a quitter. This jab at Loli's father was not lost on him, and he glared at Errol, who continued, urging him to stop wallowing and embrace his age, reminding him he still had one hand capable of wielding a sword. This provoked Loli's father, who seized Errol by the collar, warning him to refrain from speaking on matters he didn't understand. He declared a dual-wielding swordsman who couldn't dual wield was merely wasting oxygen. Errol countered that he disagreed, drawing on his own experience as a classless swordsman striving to rise in the world. He pushed him away, retreating upstairs. Loli and Rai rushed to Errol's side, inquiring if he was all right, while Loli apologized for her father's behavior, thanking him for his candidness. He acknowledged her father's strength, lamenting that it was a waste for someone with such experience to refuse to wield it. He promised himself to motivate Loli's father Rod to reclaim the sword. Loli, hearing of his ambition to learn new skills, suggested exploring nearby dungeons. Errol, unfamiliar with the concept, listened as Ray explained dungeons were underground caverns filled with monsters and traps, ideal for honing skills and gaining real battle experience ahead of the Sword God Cup. Confused, Errol learned that the city held an annual tournament where the nation's finest swordsmen competed for supremacy. Loli quickly produced a form for him to fill out if he wished to enter, but to Ray's horror, he tore it up in front of them. When Ray asked if he didn't want to enter the contest, Errol revealed that Loli had been trying to trick him, handing him a marriage certificate instead. Loli laughed, claiming it was merely a test, but Errol, done with being compliant, playfully restrained her in a rear-naked choke to teach her a lesson. The following morning, Errol awoke to find Loli attempting to surprise him, but he dodged her and tied her to the bed before leaving. Later that day, they ventured to the dungeons together, where Loli explained the teleportation circles that would take them to desired dungeon levels. She claimed she had reached level 12, while Ray had reached level 14. Eager for a challenge, Errol decided to accompany Ray to the 14th level, but Loli informed him that he needed to have been physically present at that level before. Disappointed since he wanted to confront the strongest monsters right away, Loli assured him, revealing a shortcut to reach the lower floors quickly. They agreed on the plan, but Loli attempted to isolate Errol, suggesting Ray could continue her run alone, as he wouldn't need two guides, and began to pull him away.
Errol is not easily swayed and insists that Rai join them. They step onto the first floor, only to be ambushed by two armored knights. Errol unsheathes his sword, engaging one knight while Rai confronts the other. To his astonishment, despite their heavy armor, the knights move with remarkable agility, but Errol knows he can handle it. He employs a dash step, swiftly decapitating one knight, only to discover the armor is empty, animated by the dungeon's mana. The knight continues to move, headless, prompting Rai to remark that they possess no true weaknesses and feel no pain. Errol then targets the legs, successfully bringing the magic knights crashing to the ground. Rai dispatches her opponent, noting that they will soon regenerate and they must press on. Before proceeding, Errol inquires about Loli's class. With pride, she declares herself a fencer, offering to teach him anything he wishes, whether in training or elsewhere. Errol declines her advances once again and continues onward. As they approach the second level, they hear cries for help emanating from a door. Moving closer, they find a bloodied man kneeling on the floor, pleading for assistance. Rai suggests taking him to the surface, but the man refuses, insisting his friends are still trapped inside, injured by a booby trap. He begs for help, but Loli immediately demands payment for her assistance. To her surprise, the man offers a substantial sum he won from gambling. However, Errol senses something amiss. Walking behind the man, he notes that anyone losing that much blood would be unable to stand without holy water, let alone walk into a dangerous area. He realizes that the blood and injuries are fabricated, but decides to keep this insight to himself, believing it could lead to something intriguing. The man leads them to a secret room, where they discover a trail of blood and a single gold coin in a puddle at the center. Loli, drawn to the coin, reaches for it just as a teleportation circle materializes beneath them. Rai recognizes the trap, while the man grins, revealing he was well compensated for this simple task. To his shock, the magic circle teleports him along with them. They find themselves on a floor even Rai has never seen, indicating it's lower than the 14th floor, yet there are no signs of formidable foes. The foe-injured man trembles with fear, stammering that this is the lowest dungeon floor, where the legendary sword god resides. Suddenly, a knight clad in rainbow-imbued armor appears before them. Loli scoffs at the notion of the sword god class, believing it to be a myth. However, Errol recognizes the peril therein and instinctively pushes Loli down as the sword god unleashes a devastating aerial slash that shatters the dungeon walls. Without hesitation, the knight attacks Errol, who barely raises his sword in time to block the blow. Although he's thrust against the wall, he realizes he survived thanks to the reinforcement magic training he received from Rai. He attempts to counterattack, but the knight is incredibly swift, utilizing advanced maneuvers to evade. With a smile, Errol sees this as a prime opportunity to test his skills. His party is taken aback as he employs the same divine step technique to close the distance, launching a flurry of strikes that the knight manages to block. Forced to retreat, the knight activates a skill that intensifies gravity in the room, pinning the others to the floor. However, Errol stands firm, recalling his childhood training with his mother, where he had to muster all his strength to remain upright. This time, he uses the gold coin to nullify the attack, creating a brief opening. Seizing the moment, he unleashes one of his most powerful abilities, Infinite Break, causing the knight to shatter into fragments, leaving everyone in awe. After regaining his strength with holy water, they all safely exit the dungeon via a teleportation spell. Back at the bar, Rod is drinking when he overhears three young men boasting about how they tricked the new members of the Dragonfang Guild into a trap, likely ensuring they wouldn't return. Rod approaches and shatters their table with a single punch, demanding they divulge everything they know. He is interrupted by Jorg, who derisively calls him a good-for-nothing drunkard. Realizing this was orchestrated by Jorg, Rod's hopes for his daughter's safety diminish. Desperate, he lunges at Jorg, but is easily brushed aside, collapsing to the ground, wishing he could save his little girl. Suddenly, a voice from the door draws his attention. Loli enters with Errol and Rai, chatting about their hunger. Spotting her father, Loli is taken aback when Rod embraces her tightly, thanking the gods for her safety. Rai accuses Jorg of orchestrating the trap, revealing that they extracted information from his accomplice. But, like a seasoned politician, Jorg denies any wrongdoing, asserting that everyone is responsible for their own safety in the dungeons, a point Errol finds valid. Rod warns Jorg that he won't escape consequences, but Jorg dismisses him as a washed-up drunkard and exits, leaving Errol pondering the new challenges ahead. Days pass, and Loli receives a scroll detailing the preliminary brackets for the tournament. To her dismay, she discovers she is in the same bracket as Errol, crushing her hopes of winning and representing her guild in the main tournament. Confused by the concept of prelims, Errol learns from Ray that the Sword God tournament attracts countless aspiring swordsmen, necessitating prelims to determine who advances. The city organizes these brackets through a dice roll, making it a matter of luck who faces whom, with the winners earning direct entry to the main tournament. Errol notes that he is in a different group than Loli, and she thanks the gods for sparing her from competing against him. She prays for assistance to navigate the prelims smoothly. While Errol teases her about her daddy issues, Loli insists they must return to the dungeons for training. Yet Errol, bored with the dungeons, is reluctant to go back. Loli tries to charm him, claiming she needs a strong man to protect her. Errol sees through her act and decides to teach her about independence. Before they can leave, Rod bursts in, overly dramatic, warning Loli to be cautious, as Jorg may strike again. Loli, sensing her father's fear, solemnly agrees to be careful before they head out. Rod turns to find Errol silently observing him, claiming he still has time to become a better father. Errol smiles, reassuring him that it's never too late to be a good person. Weeks pass, and the day of the preliminaries arrives. Matches commence, and the crowd roars from the ramparts as fighters clash in a spectacle of sparks and swordplay. Gradually, the ranks thin as contestants are eliminated, and Loli loses her match before facing Errol. She sulks in a corner, disappointed as she had hoped to at least reach the finals this time. Errol, dismissive of her feelings, tells her she worried for nothing regarding their bracket, as he believes she would have lost regardless. This only deepens her sadness. However, she steels herself, reminding him to stay vigilant, even though he is strong, as the other finalist possesses special tricks. Errol, unfazed, replies that he has encountered nearly all tricks from his dungeon battles, doubting this opponent could surprise him. Loli warns him that the red-haired swordsman is a magic swordsman, capable of enhancing their sword with magic spells. This revelation intrigues Errol, who hadn't anticipated magic being allowed in a tournament centered around swordsmanship. Loli explains that it doesn't matter what class you are, you only need to belong to a guild to participate. The announcer then calls for Errol, and Loli wishes him luck as he steps into the arena facing the red-haired girl who openly declares herself a magic swordsman.
She dismisses his complaints about the fight being unfair due to her magic. Errol confidently asserts that the best fighter will win. With that, the announcer signals the start of the match, and the red-haired girl launches fireballs at him. Errol deftly dodges each one, skillfully deflecting and slashing through the rest. The magic swordswoman, however, seems to have an endless supply of mana, continuing her relentless assault. Yet Errol weaves through her attacks to close the distance. He attempts to strike her down, but she counters, using a fireball to push him back. As he gauges her abilities, he comments on how convenient it must be to switch between close-range and long-range attacks at will. She boasts about her talent, asserting that someone like him could never defeat her. Errol counters that while she knows the basics, she lacks mastery in either discipline. This infuriates her, and she vows to make him regret his words. She imbues her blade with fire, claiming only a true magic swordsman can wield such a weapon. She swings her sword, sending flames chasing after him, but he sidesteps and slashes at the fire. Still, even he struggles to anticipate her erratic movements. He acknowledges her talent and suggests she must have trained extensively. Soon, he plants himself firmly, demonstrating true mastery by deflecting her flame attacks without moving. He points out that although her basic swordsmanship is superior, she could have been far more effective. At her current level, she barely exceeds the skills of NPCs. This deeply embarrasses her. As she loses her composure, Errol seizes the opportunity to unleash a twin slash, extinguishing her flames and shocking her. Before she can grasp what just occurred, he uses his blink step to appear behind her and knocks her out with a strike from his pommel. The crowd erupts in cheers as the judges declare Errol the winner of the fourth block. Yet his thoughts are consumed with mastering and applying the skills he just witnessed. Days pass, and finally, the day of the final tournament arrives. Loli returns to the guild house to wake her father, insisting he watch the tournament with her to support both Errol and Rai, who have both triumphed in their blocks. Her father, eyes still closed, tells her to go alone, showing no interest. Frustrated, Loli tries to provoke him by suggesting he fears encountering Jorg. Rod reacts defensively, asserting he's not afraid of Jorg, but soon regains his composure. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he confesses that he attempted to pick up his sword yesterday and realized he's so rusty that he might not win the Sword God tournament. This infuriates Loli, who points out that she couldn't even qualify for the preliminaries, let alone dream of winning the tournament while calling herself rusty. She urges him to consider how he can still compete with the finalists when many swordsmen who train their entire lives can't even make it past the first match. Eventually, Rod agrees to attend, and on their way to the stadium, he reminisces about training Rai when he had both arms, reflecting fondly on those moments and wondering how she will perform as she is his oldest student. At the tournament, Rai appears anxious, shaking her legs nervously. Lost in her thoughts, she is startled by Errol, who asks if she's afraid they might face each other in the first match. This momentary distraction helps her shake off her fears as she attempts to strike him. Just then, the judges announce that the first match will feature Jorg, the defending champion, against Errol, the classless phenom who has surprised everyone with his undefeated streak. As Errol prepares to leave, Rai grabs his hand and wishes him good luck. He steps into the arena, where Loli cheers him on, urging him to defeat Jorg decisively. However, upon spotting Jorg entering the arena, Errol senses something is amiss. Jorg's eyes have turned purple, and he has developed fangs and a horn, resembling someone who has made a dark pact. Errol's instincts kick in, warning him of the danger. Rod immediately recognizes the situation, warning Errol to back off, as Jorg wields a sword containing a powerful demon trapped within. Jorg's voice sounds different, as he declares he didn't expect anyone to recognize him. Loli is puzzled, believing Jorg should know Rod, but Rod explains that Jorg is no longer in control. The demon has taken over. Rod reveals that the sword Jorg carries was once wielded by the sword god who defeated the Demon King, but before dying, the demon cursed it to remain locked away in the royal repository. The demon, now free, boasts about being sealed for centuries, patiently waiting for someone to release him and claim his power. He introduces himself as Gilda, the destroyer of mankind. Rai, overhearing, expresses disbelief, having thought Gilda was merely a myth. Panic ensues as spectators recognize the name and begin to flee, causing chaos. Gilda revels in their fear, creating a magic circle that envelops the stadium in a dome of energy, trapping everyone inside. He relishes the sound of their screams, declaring it music to his ears as he plans to enjoy their terror before slaughtering them. To a surprise, Errol remains steady, sword drawn. Gilda taunts him to run, but Errol confidently asserts he can defeat him, having been beaten before, which proves he's not invincible. The demon laughs, recalling he was last defeated by a sword god, and according to Jorg's memories, none exist now. Errol retorts that his mother is still alive, and he can defeat Gilda even without being a sword god. The demon laughs again, but soon stops as Errol charges in for an attack, forcing Gilda to retreat and counter. Errol evades the attacks, while Gilda is shocked to see him employing the divine step technique, exclusive to sword gods. Undeterred, Errol continues to utilize the technique, attacking from various angles. Gilda smirks, reminding Errol that he inhabits the body of a sword emperor, rendering his attacks less effective. The demon leaps and strikes Errol on the shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground, believing he's won. However, when the dust settles, Errol stands, revealing he absorbed the blow thanks to his training with Ray. Gilda, shaken, attacks again, but Errol calmly deflects him and retaliates with an infinite break attack, overwhelming the demon with a flurry of strikes. This triggers Gilda's PTSD, as he realizes Errol is executing the techniques of a sword god. Yet he struggles to comprehend how a mere boy could reach such a level. Before he can devise a counterplan, Errol delivers a powerful slash, sending Gilda crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust. The crowd erupts in cheers, believing Errol has vanquished the demon god. However, Gilda is not dead. His true form remains in the sword, and all the damage was inflicted on Georg's body. He quickly searches for a new host and lunges towards Rod. Errol instinctively pushes Rai out of the way, while Rod steps in front of Loli to protect her. When the dust clears, Rod stands with the demon sword, pressing the blade against Loli's throat. Errol curses himself for not realizing he needed to target the sword, not Georg's body. But it's too late. Gilda threatens that if Errol moves, Loli will die. Yet Errol remains calm, declaring Rod is far stronger than Georg ever was, making possession difficult. Rod drives the sword into the ground, freeing Loli, while Gilda struggles for control. However, Rod overpowers the demon, throwing the sword to Errol, who shatters it to dust, finally defeating Gilda. And that's where this tale concludes. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you later.